This is a time-lapse of the Voyager 2 probe's approach to the most distant planet in our solar system, Neptune. The background noise is composed of various internal radio and software sounds broadcasted back to Earth, along with the pictures and video of the planet. When I was much younger and saw Neptune for the first time, my first thought was that of an oceanic planet. After all, its dark blue hue and its white clouds somewhat resemble an aerial view of the Pacific Ocean, and it's even named Neptune after the Roman god of the sea. So it's easy to picture how an imaginative 5-year-old could come up with that conclusion. But of course, that's not actually what Neptune is, and the reality of it all is much scarier than what my little kid self ever could have guessed. Neptune isn't an ocean world, it's an ice giant. Far from something like the planet Hoth from Star Wars or Serpedon from Star Trek, an ice giant is basically identical to a gas giant, with the only real differences being their size and certain elemental and chemical makeups of its chaotic and deep atmosphere. Which means you have a planet with no solid surface to speak of anywhere. It's just layers upon layers of thick, cold, and increasingly darkening pressurized gas. I don't remember how young I was when I first learned about the true nature of gas and ice giants, but I remember exactly what I felt: fear. And I remember my thoughts uniformly racing with the same exclamation: space is terrifying. Even now, as a 20-year-old, gas and ice giants are planets that can easily put me on edge. Even just by simply looking at a picture of one of these massive worlds, I feel an overlooming presence of intimidation. After all, they aren't given the label of giant for no reason. And for me, Jupiter is the very epitome of this feeling. If the planet Earth were to ever hypothetically careen towards and impact a planet like Jupiter, we wouldn't even be given the dignity of going out with an explosive, asteroid-like collision. We would simply just be burnt up in and swallowed by Jupiter's large atmosphere. And swallowed isn't necessarily an inappropriate way to describe it either, as our planet would likely just be absorbed and coalesced into Jupiter's metallic, liquid-like lower layers. There'd be no evidence that our planet ever even existed. We'd just be erased from the cosmos. And touching on that subject a bit is the fact that these planets have no definable surface to speak of. This, in my mind, makes gas and ice giants the most alien worlds that can possibly exist. As strange and mysterious as worlds like Venus and Mars can be, at least they have a ground that a human could actually technically stand atop of. But here, there is no familiarity to speak of, nothing even remotely terrestrial. If you ever were to manage being caught in Jupiter's gravity to the point you ended up falling towards the planet, it'd likely be a terrifying and intensely anxious death, as you found yourself becoming engulfed in clouds for miles until the light from the sun became snuffed out, and you plummeted endlessly in darkness until the pressure became so high that your body popped like a bug in a fire. And even if you had some special sci-fi suit that let you survive in such high pressures, you'd still eventually find yourself being smothered and burned alive in a white-hot global sea of liquid metallic hydrogen. And Saturn is no different. Don't let the beauty of its rings fool you. This planet is every bit as violent and inhospitable as Jupiter. Even more so, actually, as wind speeds in Saturn's upper atmosphere can clock in at over 1,000 miles per hour. Speeds high enough to easily kill a person. In fact, storms on Saturn have been charted going so fast that they're able to race around the planet and meet their own tails before they have a chance to dissipate. And of course, these storms and global deep formations of clouds are what give our gas giants their iconic looks, and are what lend greatly to their terrifying aura. The most famous of which is Jupiter's Great Red Spot, a massive cyclonic hurricane that has been known to exist since the 17th century, but has likely existed for hundreds or even thousands of years before that, and could quite possibly be a permanent feature of the planet. A storm so large and deep that the planet Earth wouldn't even fill it, and even when looked at up close, its layers of clouds are challenging to tell apart with the unaided eye. More troubling for me, however, is the large hexagonal storm constantly raging atop Saturn's North Pole. Without saying a word, I'm going to show you a few very real close-up images of this massive storm taken years back by the Cassini space probe.